Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, and just a little bit of explanation about what you're about to watch. It is the explanation of how to play the module 01B of the JADO system, the Joint All Domain Operations. This is a particularly challenging game to learn because, as you know, if you're watching this video, you know that the rules are in Chinese. There isn't an official English translation of those rules. So my point being is I'm trying my best to simplify the explanation of the rules, trying to go through the manual, because even going through the manual is a bit challenging because the way the rules are organized, they are not the way I would have organized them. They're a little bit broken apart, so they explain certain elements at the beginning of the instructions, and then instead of developing those sections, they develop those sections later on in the document. So sometimes it's a little bit of a back and forth and you don't really know which one is which. Then again, I'm translating the document as I can, and sometimes maybe the same concept uses two different words, and I don't know if that happens in the original manual in Chinese, but you know, sometimes you're reading something and you're like, why, when does this happen? And it's because they are referring to the same action, maybe with two different names. So in this explanation, I have fixed that, so you're not gonna see that difference. When the manual calls for a certain action in two different ways, I'm consolidating that into one, so it's a lot clearer and streamlined how to play. And again, trying to merge all those separate parts, so the parts make sense in a way. So again, you're gonna see a few cuts in the video because sometimes I'm doing things and then I realize, well, this cannot actually be like this, so I have to check the rules, try to interpret them. So, and then sometimes I forgot things, so I have just bring back something that I forgot and put it where it should have been. So again, do not have to explain something that is broken like in the rules. So try to keep everything where it has to happen, and you have to consider it, and that way make everything sense. But the cost is having a little bit broken video, right, in these sections that you might be like, oh, why there's this cut here? Well, that's the reason. If you don't mind, again, it is what it is, and this is a tough learning process. Now, for my Spanish viewers, esto lo explico en inglés porque el público, no sé yo si esto tiene mucha audiencia en español, así que estos vídeos del JADO los voy a sacar en inglés, los voy a tratar de subtitular en español para que no haya problema y vosotros también podáis aprender, los que estéis siguiendo estos vídeos, que debe ser 4, sobre todo de este módulo terrestre, porque, bueno, el módulo terrestre tampoco tiene mucho seguimiento, no sé muy bien por qué, pero la verdad que está muy bien. Y nada, os dejo con un vídeo intenso. Preparaos porque hay tela. Very good. Let's begin. Very good. So let's begin with the turn sequence. So first of all, this is the campaign support sequence. So if you have new units that are coming in to your map, like naval or airborne or missiles, then you can put them in what's called the nested map hexes, which are the bottom right corner of this map, which I'm not going to show now, but I'll show you a little bit later. Now, the Chinese, they can assign units to these disembarkment channels, right? So how does this work is there are two ways of doing this. So depending on the scenario might tell you, okay, you have to put these units in these boxes, or you're free to do it and assign the units depending as you want. Now, again, the rules tells you that the assignment of the units to the different channels have to be secret. So you have to write it down on a piece of paper and say, okay, this, boom, not this, those are drums. This unit, for instance, is gonna go to this channel. You see that the channels are divided in three. There's a line separating this, and here there's another white line here, and this other channel there's another white line separating those two. So those white lines, what do? So you're not going to see it probably, but here underneath there are some numbers. There's a range of numbers. So this says 1401 to 1801. This goes from 0903 to 1302, and this one from 0406 to 080803. So what does that means that the units placed on these channels can land in the range of hexagons that are written here. So for instance, this unit can be deployed or try to beach land between hexagons 0903, 1302. These divisions are related to the divisions of these yellow lines that you can see on the map, right? So this goes 0406 to 0803. So that means from this hexagon 0406 to 0803. And you can see here the yellow line that divides this area. Okay, so that gives you some information. I mean, gives you some information when the channels and when the units are deployed or are assigned to this channel, then the Taiwanese player knows that those units are potentially gonna go somewhere here, right? As I'm playing solitaire, I have assigned the units to their channels, and that's it. Now, prior to that step, after that step, the Taiwanese player has to write down some hexagons because there are secret coastal defenses like this one, right? So what happens is, if the Chinese player lands one of their units in one of those coastal hexagons, if the Taiwanese player has written down, for instance, 0406 as containing one of these coastal positions, the coastal position will appear, and well, that's a little bit of a problem for a Chinese player to get out of there. There's a way of simplifying this process by, again, not being so secretive about where are you gonna land those units, just by... Okay, so you don't want to be so secretive and streamline a little bit the landing process, which is a thing. The rules tells you that once one of the units has landed in one of the hexagons, you roll a die. On a result of 5 or less, in a 10 side die, 5 or less, coastal defense appears in that hexagon. So I used that rule because it simplifies a lot my solitaire experience. Just rolling a die, 5 or less appears. If not, then the coastal defense wasn't set up there. Fine. Now we have assigned our units. In this scenario that I'm playing, units 72 and 73 units. So the ones I have here are 72 or 73 can land during the first wave of landing. The units marked as 71, like this one, land in the next waves of landing from the second one onwards. Good. So once you have assigned the units to their channels, and you know a little bit more or less where they're going to go, then the beach landing begins. So how does the beach landing works? Let's see if we have time to explain that. Let's pick up, let's say, this unit, and this unit. So these units, main difference between these units are the ones with the hollow movement number, those are infantry units. Okay, the ones with solid movement factors are armored units or non-infantry units. That's a big difference for the landing. I'm gonna remove this one for the sake of clarifying, because the infantry units is easy. Now these two units, they might look exactly the same. Besides the numbers, they might look exactly the same, like armored units. But what if I told you that this unit is an amphibian unit? And you will be, how in heaven can I see that that unit is amphibian and the other one is not? Well, did you see this between the red and the white? The interface is straight. In this one, between the red and the white, if you squint your eyes and pay a lot of attention, you see that there's like a wobbly, wiggly line there, like a wave. So that means that that unit is amphibian. I'm going to give you a couple more seconds so you can identify that tiny difference between those two lines, and that's actually important for the deployment, for the landing, to identify which unit is amphibian and which unit is not, because they can land in more units if it's amphibian or not. One thing to notice before we do the landing, there are some hexagons, and let's see how I do this. There are like this one, that they have this gray thick line. Those are cliffs. Identify the shoreline as cliffs. Units cannot beach land on these hexagons because they are cliffs. Okay, so no unit can land there. There are areas with cliffs that have ports in them. The port can be used as a landing point, which we'll see in a second how. But if you see a gray thick line, basically you cannot land there. Right, so now how can we land? Let's begin with the easy one, but I shouldn't be doing this because, let's see if I can, okay, this infantry. Okay, we know this, even if the picture portrays like some vehicles, this is an infantry unit. So mobilize, this is actually what? Actually it's mechanized infantry brigade. Okay, so if it's an infantry unit, you can land short hexagons can hold a maximum of 2 strength points of units, and infantry units count as the strength of every strength point of the infantry unit counts as 1. So to explain this a little bit better, these are infantry units, and this is the strength of the unit, these 4 rectangles here. So each rectangle counts as 1 strength point. So if I want to land, so this allows me to 0803. Okay, here I cannot land the whole unit, because this coastal hexagon, shore hexagon, only allows me to deploy or to land 2 of these 4 strength units. So you have to break, this is 3, but there, to break this unit into the smaller version of this unit. So, okay, so the smaller version of that unit will be this one. Let's say this is the full strength, 4 points. This is half strength 2. So you can break this one into 2 of these ones, which you can do. So you will find the other counter, 72G and CCG. Yeah, this one. Okay, you can break it down, remove this temporarily, put this here, and now you could try to land that unit there, because it's 2 strength points and that's the maximum that this beach hexagon can hold. Now, okay, so now let's begin. So we have deployed or tried, actually, as it's tried, this unit hasn't yet landed, it's trying to land. We'll see what that means. So let's try to deploy this unit here. So this is a heavy composite combat group. Why is that? You see an H there, that's heavy CCG composite combat group. So heavy composite combat groups, each one of the strength points counts as 3. Okay? So you cannot try to beach land this unit onto the beach. It just cannot, right? Because the capacity is 2. And a single one, even if you break it down into a smaller unit, this rectangle here will need 3. So, well, as I said, you cannot try to beach land this unit. It's just too heavy. It needs a port. And I will explain how ports work in a second. Actually, I'll explain it now. I think here, ports. This is a port. Okay. There's a port. Is the symbol? The symbol have a tiny number down there. This is a port with a number that says 4. So when you're trying to land your units to a port, you divide the capacity of that port by 2. And that's the capacity of that port for landing. So you will be able to deploy in that port 2 strength point units. Now there are ports that are bigger ones. So in Kaohsiung there is a port that has 8. So the capacity is 4 for your units. Once you have established a beachhead on that port, that means you have a unit in the port and a unit adjacent to the port, then that's understood that you have taken over the port, and then you can use the full capacity of the port to deploy your units. So that's how you first will try to take the port with smaller units, and once it's secure, then you will be able to bring the big guns. Right. So that's the heavy composite units. Heavy units, not the ones that says CCG. So remember, this is H, heavy composite combat group. But there are units that are just heavy without the CCG. Then the strength points of those units count as 2, not 3. Okay, so you could deploy or beach land one of those just heavy units onto beach hexagons. Now, there are these other units, the amphibian ones. What do the amphibian units mean? If a unit is amphibian, you increase the capacity of the hexagon, of the coastal hexagon, or anything, even if it's a port, by 1. So normally this will have a capacity of 2. But if you're trying to land one of these units, the ones that have this wavy symbol, then the capacity will be 3. So in this case, this is a heavy unit because it has this solid number, and normally this will occupy 2 of the capacity units, and it will fill. So this will be, the capacity will be 2 of this hexagon, but it will have an additional, it will be able to hold an additional strength point because this is a amphibian unit. So let's say this also tries to go that way. And just a reminder, what I have done to be able to deploy that unit, so I couldn't deploy this unit, this full unit, because this has 4 strength points. So that will be, I will need 8 capacity points on the shoreline coast, in the shoreline. So I cannot do that. So what I do is I flip the unit, so now it shows 3 strength point, and the strength point missing, I'm taking it as this small version of the unit, and I put it here as trying to land. And you will do that with every other unit. So this one is a heavy unit, right? This is not amphibian. You see that there's a straight line. So I won't be able, well, this is actually a infantry unit. So I could try to deploy this one as well somewhere here, if I want to, and try to surround the port for taking it in later turns. Good. So let's say that we have finished with this. Actually, if you have broken down the unit, you say, I have broken down this infantry unit, you cannot deploy the other half somewhere else. What you want to try in later turns is to consolidate the unit. So if you have broken down, as I did with this MCCG medium unit, in the next turn, I will need to try to move this one into this one and build its full capacity. So yes, the only thing that is left is to try to land this one, but this goes to another channel, this one. So here I can do anything else but moving these special forces that are here, but I don't want to move them or try to land them as the special forces are better transported by helicopter, but I'm not going to touch that right now. So let's say that we have managed to bring those 2 units to the shore. Now you will roll a die. On a roll of 5 or less, units are fine, nothing happens. On 6 to 10, the units are suppressed when they land. So this one is fine, this lands fine, and this one, a 9. So this unit, it has been subjected to some fire when it was trying to land, small arms fire. So what happens is it lands, but it's suppressed. So everything, the air defense capability is divided by half. The breakthrough, the firepower, they call it breakthrough. So the breakthrough power is divided by half. And their movement is divided by half, and can only move in a certain way when the units are suppressed. I'll touch that in a later video. But yeah, this has been able to land fine, but this one, I don't know, it had some trouble. Now we're going to roll for the coastal position. So we're going to roll on a 5 or less. Coastal defense appears, so nothing happens there. At 2, yes. So, well, now we know why the unit was suppressed. The coastal defenses, essentially there were some Taiwanese people expecting the landing there. They had some dragon teeth and some defensive positions. So they were there, and they have suppressed that unit while landing. So you do that with all all the units in every channel that you had. And what happens next, I'll explain in another video. Thank you for watching. Bye. Small correction to the video. This unit couldn't land here because it wasn't in the channel. More things something that I forgot. If there are units already in the hexagon, like this one, you can try to land here, but then the capacity of the hexagon to land is reduced to just one capacity. So essentially, you will be able just to land one infantry unit here, or an amphibious unit here as well, with a strength force of 1. But would you like to do that? I'm not so sure, because the units cannot leave the hexagon where they are if they are units or facilities in their hexagon of landing. So this unit here cannot leave this hexagon until it has cleared this coastal defense. Or if you land where this unit is, and this unit stays, it cannot leave the hexagon until it destroys the whole brigade, which, well, seems challenging when you're trying to land. So, I mean, up to you, but I don't recommend landing on hexagons that already have units, unless, I don't know, your force is way bigger than the enemy's force. Okay, bye. Right, so we're going to enter after the beach landing. There's a intermediate phase here, which is the campaign fire support, which you can use units that are in the nested map hexes. Those campaign ground supports are flying units. So imagine that you have aircraft that have moved from the operational map to this one, or the scenario tells you that there are aircraft. For instance, there are aircraft here. Those actually are in the air bases in the map, but I'm talking about if there were aircraft here, then the aircraft here could move into the real map and perform some sort of attack or bombing, right? Now I'm going to be moving the camera a little bit today because we have an extensive area to cover. What I did from the previous video, the previous cut, is to land all the other units that were waiting here in the disembarkment channels. I land them, so they're already here, and I have already performed what is called the first ground combat phase. So the first ground combat phase, it's called first ground combat phase, but actually there's not necessarily combat here, which is very confusing, or it was very confusing for me, because I kept reading first combat ground combat phase, first round. Let's put this maybe somewhere here. First ground combat phase, and I was expecting, I don't know, that I could shoot, but actually this phase is a preparation phase. So in this preparation phase, you can do a couple of things. You can prepare to attack. Well, first of all, how the units are activated. This is very important. So the units are activated based on their informatization number. So let's bring a unit here, like this one. This number in gold here in the middle of the counter says 7. This is the level of informatization of this unit. There are other units, like this one has 6, and so on, right? So that number represents the amount of information that unit has of the battlefield. And that depends on their technology. I don't know how they are equipped. So for instance, special operations units, special forces like this one, have informatization value of 8 and the highest is 9. So imagine then. Also, it depends on the technology that those units are using. So I don't know, an infantry unit, pretty basic, might be this one. So this has an information value of 4. These guys are sold here, baked, because essentially they are just there waiting. I don't know, they are specialists, right? So how does that work is, first of all, the units that have the highest informatization value will activate first. So we will check the map, right, and check, is there any unit with informatization value of 9 of the attacking, on the attacking side? But the whole map, okay? So we will check the whole map. 9. That was a joke. No. So now, 9 of the defensive side, the Taiwanese side. No. So now, 8. Yes. So then, first we will check 8 for the attackers. There is none, 8 of the attackers. But the defenders have one unit that has an 8. So this unit now can be activated and decide what that unit wants to do. And the options are attack preparation. So this unit is preparing for a full attack on some other unit. That means that you will put this counter on the unit, which has a 3 divided by 2 here. So meaning that you're going to multiply their attack value by 1.5, okay, in the next phase, not here. They are preparing now. Remember, these turns are 4 hours in real time. The unit can prepare for defend. So you can use this counter, which is basically the other side of this counter. So they will be tagging positions, trenches, whatever, and they will prepare it for defense. So their attack will be half, but also the amount of hits, if they receive any, that they will get will be reduced by half, which is a lot, rounded up. So if it's 1, if they receive 1 hit, it will be divided by 2, 0.5, but it's rounded up, so they will still get 1 hit. But this is good. You'll see that I have already some units with that counter here. Why? Because, for instance, this unit here, when it landed, it was suppressed. And there was a coastal defense here. So obviously I set them up as in a defensive position. But for instance, this unit has landed perfectly fine. So it's ready to attack full force. But obviously in this phase, you can move. Okay? It is in this phase where you can move. And that half movement that I explained is just another way of moving. Okay? But yeah, and how you move? Well, you get your chart of terrain movement, and then depending on this is discriminated in 2 types of movement. So heavy units and light units. So depending on if you are heavy unit or light unit, then it takes you more or less to move through different terrain. To be honest, it seems that the only difference in city, metropolis, and mountains level 1. And any other way, it doesn't make any difference. And for instance, you can even move in mountains level 2, in mountains level 3, you cannot even enter there unless you go through the roads. But yeah, and this more things about movement that I forgot to mention, but it's fine because at least you're gonna have everything in one place. When you move in the first ground combat phase, let's say that you're moving, this unit has a movement of 3. You need to be checking when you move in X seconds adjacent to other units, if, let's see, this one. Let's imagine this unit is moving from here to here and wants to go here. When it reaches this X, checks, is my firepower less than half the firepower of the unit that I'm moving adjacent to? In this case, yes. Then this unit has to stop its movement right there. Okay, so this is always that you have to check. This usually happens, so you don't need to check everything for all units, but mainly check when you're moving infantry units besides armor units or heavy units, because that's when that triggers. All the other units is going to be difficult, that the what they call the breakthrough power or the firepower is less than half the unit that you're passing by. So just keep that in mind when moving infantry units besides armor units. Don't go near them, because what this game represents is that, yeah, it's fine, there is not like a massive 4 hours battle, right, going on, but there is always small fights, small fights essentially that happen through those 4 hours. If you going through or pass by an hexagon that has heavy units, you're gonna be stopped at some point. That unit has better elements to identify you, to shoot at you at distance, right? Where the infantry unit won't be able to respond to that fire, so they will get pinned in that place. That's just a final note. Let's continue with the video. Bye. Stacking limits. So every hex can contain 10 points of ground strength. Again, the ground strength is measured in these rectangles of the units here. So in this case, this is 4. So you could just have 10 points of this ground force, unless it is a mountain level 3, which I'm going to show you here. You can tell this is a mountain level 3 by the colors. So this is a mountain level 1, this is a little bit darker green, is a mountain level 2, and this even darker green is a mountain level 3. So here you can only have units with a strength or ground strength of 1, like this special force group. Good. Flying units can stack up to 5. So helicopters can stack up to 5 in the hexagon, and actually this is an illegal location. They cannot occupy level 3 mountains. So this helicopter cannot enter any of these hexes here. They can stay here, and when they are here, they can accumulate 5 strength points of units. Good. In the nested map, there is a limit of 2 aviation units or 10 ships. How the helicopters move and can transport units while moving. So helicopters are located in this red box. The helicopters of the Chinese side, they are located in these red boxes here. It is important in which red box these helicopters are, because depending on which box they are different things. So first of all, there's a limit of units that you can put here. So for instance, this box can contain up to 12 strength points of flying units. I have here more stuff, okay, but this shouldn't be here. This or this shouldn't be here. This only counts air units. But moreover, if you have the air units that are in this box can only support or enter the map through the hexes that are written here. So these helicopters could enter from hexagon 0406 to 1801. Okay, for supporting units, combat, or air transport of infantry units. The same with this box, and the same with the other box that you cannot see very much here. Besides that information, this box contains more information. There's a number here. This means that this is the points of movement that have to be subtracted from your helicopter while transitioning from this box to the map. So immediately, let's say that I want to move this helicopter. This helicopter has 17 points of movement. So immediately it will be subtracted 10. And the remaining 7 are the movements that can move through the map. But on top of that, you can see that this map has also some numbers here in blue. 2, 3, 2. It means that there is an additional cost of entering this hexagon besides the cost of leaving this base. So this will be, if let's say I want to enter this hexagon and then continue moving, it will be 10 plus 2, so that's already 12. So I will only have 5 more points of movement to just move around or reach wherever I want to go. So keep that in mind while moving. Again, and this movement happens during the first combat phase. Now, you can move, you can transport units. So, transporting units, at least in this model, the helicopter units that can transport units are the ones marked as CH. So, for instance, here it says CH. Those are the helicopters, transport helicopters. These other helicopters that are here, those are attack helicopters. Okay, they are not marked as CH, they are marked as UH. So this is not a transport helicopter. Also, you can see how many that is a transport helicopter because it has a rectangle here. So this means that it can transport one strength point unit in it. Picking up units costs you 1 movement point, but when you're loading units, let's say from this area to the map, it doesn't. When you fly over units that have air defense values, like this one, this has a defense of 3, let's say with your helicopter, you enter the map through this hexagon, you're subjected to AAA fire, anti-aircraft fire. So what will happen is that this unit will shoot. If the result of the die is less or equal than the anti-aircraft value, it will shoot down your helicopter and the units that are inside also will die. So try not to do so. Also, you have to remember this unit has a range of 0, but there are other units that have a range of 1. So be careful while flying around other units that have a range to their anti-aircraft value. Right. Once you have dropped your unit, again, picking up, as I mentioned, it costs you 1 1 movement point, but dropping units costs nothing. And the unit that you have dropped can immediately act. Okay? In this module, in the 01B, only special forces groups can, like this one, can be embarked in a helicopter. And also, this special forces group have 2 sides, this one and this one. For the Taiwanese, the side that can be embarked is this one with the movement of 1 in front. For the Chinese, the ones that can be embarked are the ones that have a 7 here movement value. You see that those both sides have better values depending on the side. So because your special forces group, if it's not airborne, let's say that it lands, then you can deploy it with the, let's say, stronger side. But if it's airborne, it has to be with its weaker side in front. Taiwanese units, so I have mentioned the Chinese units can be picked up. It doesn't matter where you have the special forces groups in which channel, right? Remember, before disembark, you might have your special forces groups in any channel. You have to. Picking up from with a helicopter, any of those units doesn't do anything to it. It's just, it doesn't matter, okay? You take it from the channel and then transport it. For the Taiwanese, you can, any special force unit can be picked up from an air base, like for instance this case, and then be transported with a helicopter. Like the same that you will do with the Chinese from the box. Here the special force unit has to be, or group has to be, in an airfield or airbase to be able to use the helicopter to transport it. And then it moves exactly the same as the Chinese. The only thing is that they don't have to pay the cost of the box, because actually this is the cost because China is quite far from this, so that's why it takes or removes 10 points from the movement of the helicopter, because it takes, well, a little bit to reach Taiwan. So that is the movement. More things actually about the movement. You cannot pick up or drop forces from the ground if they have any attack or defense preparation markers. And when units move, they have to first remove any attack or defense preparation markers. They lose them. And if units have an attack or defense preparation marker, cannot execute reactive movement. Reactive movement, as I mentioned, I don't know if I'm going to mention it before or after, because I'm putting the videos together. It is a movement that allows you to essentially occupy a hexagon where another enemy unit is trying to move first. So let's say there is a unit here, enemy unit, and it's trying to move to this hexagon. This unit, if it wasn't spent, could try to move to that hexagon and therefore blocking that other unit from moving inside that hexagon. But if you have an attack or preparation marker, you cannot do that. Good. I think I have covered everything. Movement wise. Let's continue. Right, so what else can it be? There can be something called reactive movement. Reactive movement is a passive action. When an enemy moves adjacent to one of your units, the unit can decide to move and occupy the hex where that enemy unit is moving. They have to make a roll, and if the roll is less than the unit's informatization value, then they can do. So let's do this one. Not this one, it doesn't matter. Let's do this one. So imagine this unit moves to this X from here to here. This unit here can roll a die, and if it rolls 5 or less, they will be able to move and occupy this X, blocking this unit's advance. They can also do what is called movement preparation. The movement preparation is units can decide to halve their movement, they can decide to move now, okay? And instead of using the movement factor, which is this one, they can decide to halve it. So instead of moving 3, move 1.5 for this unit in particular, and then roll a die. If the die roll is less than the informatization value, then they can perform another active action. So they could maybe move half and enter their defense preparation stage, or they can move half and prepare to attack. You get the drill, right? So, but you have to be able to manage to make that roll. So roll less than your informatization. Of course, as you can imagine, like special forces, because their informatization value is so high, they're going to be able to do those kind of things, like move and prepare to attack, move and prepare to defense, and stuff like that. Right. They can also, units that have support firepower, they can shoot. So support firepower is howitzers, mortars, things like that. So these units are units that have these values. So this is their normal firepower, and this number that appears on the side is their capacity of doing ground support. So this unit can, I don't know if it can be seen, can shoot to a distance of 2, this small number here, with firepower of 1. So you can do that. If you do that and you hit a unit, and I'll explain this table in a second, you will suppress other units. Units that have been suppressed, if they are being suppressed again, they will receive a hit. So for instance, this unit will be removed from the game because it only has one step left. So that is the first. Okay, something that I didn't completely explain was with the firepower preparation, when you're doing the artillery strikes, right? So let's say this unit. You see, this unit can shoot at 2 hexagons of distance, but how? So can this unit shoot at this hexagon, for instance? Well, we'll see. So to be able to shoot, you need to be at 1x distance from the hexagon that you're shooting. So in this case, yes, it's clear they have a line of sight to the objective. If not, let's say that you are at 2 hexes, then you need a friendly ground unit with an informatization value of more than 6. So let's say that you have, let's pick another unit, these guys here. In this situation, this unit cannot shoot artillery into this unit because this unit only has an informatization value of 5. Okay, so it's not enough. You cannot give them enough information with the coordinates or anything about the units that are in this hexagon. But if, for instance, this unit was there, this unit can provide surveillance onto this, and this unit could shoot the artillery or firepower preparation onto this one, because a unit with informatization value of 6 is adjacent to the unit. Now, if you have drones, I don't know if I have a drone here anywhere. Drones here. There's a drone. So you have drones at 3 axes of distance. 1, 2, 3. The unit that you're shooting, you can use the drone to provide you information of the targeting, essentially. So unmanned vehicles with an informatization value of 7+. That's why this drone has an informatization value of 7. Right, let's put this somewhere here. Right, then you can do counter artillery shooting. So imagine these guys are shooting at these guys, and these guys they don't have the ability to shoot back because they don't have artillery support. But imagine they could. So if the target unit, when you're doing counter artillery reconnaissance, is within 2x's of a friendly ground unit with an informatization value of 4 or more, that has executed firepower preparation in the current action phase. So imagine that these guys had the possibility of shooting artillery. This unit has shot them. Now, if there was this unit adjacent to this hex, or within 2 x's, so it could be even here, then this unit, as it has an informatization value of 4, actually they have already one here, so they could shoot back. Or imagine that in the hexagon, in this hexagon, they were only units of informatization value of 2. Because this one has an informatization value of 4, this could provide information of where this unit has been seen, where the shots are coming from, provide the information to this unit, and this unit do a counter-artillery reconnaissance. And that's what you need to be able to shoot artillery to other units. So how does the support fire works? So I have this unit here. This one still hasn't decided what to do. It's an informatization value 5, so many other units, this shouldn't have this counter yet because it has an informatization value 4, but let's imagine that it's not there. So something that I forgot is that because units with informatization value, a high informatization value, decide what to do, the units with informatization value that is lower than that can react to what the other unit is doing. For instance, this unit has decided to establish a defensive position here. So this one that has an informatization value of 6, when it's their turn to decide what to do, has decided to go all in and put a preparation for attack. In this game, in the second ground force combat phase, when you attack, you can counter attack, and we will go through that obviously. So yeah, this is a bold movement to prepare for attack. So you have to have things clear. In this case, it's very clear. There's a mechanized unit with a firepower of 20. So yeah, I think they're fine. Now, after this unit, 6, it will come all the 5s for the attacker. And I have left this one to explain how it works. This unit is not going to prepare to attack, prepare to defend. It's not going to move. It's not going to do the half movement. It's going to do the support fire because it has the ability to do so. So then we're going to go to this table. The support firepower is 1, so we're going to be rolling on this column here. And this is the result of the roll. When we roll any result that has a number in the firepower support phase, let's say, means that the unit that this unit is shooting to, it will become suppressed. Now that unit is in this sort of terrain, which is a swampy terrain. When you shoot in the firepower support, as a firepower support, you're going to be looking at this row here, the one that is at the bottom. Now this table is very confusing how it works, but I managed to find out, and I'm going to explain it because, again, not that complicated, but till I found out, it was a thing. Okay, so you see that there are. Let's begin with the firepower support. Let's check this row. Clear terrain, it says +1. Muddy thing, nothing. City, +1. Metropolis, +2. So that means Not what you're thinking. That means it's when you're rolling, if he has a +1, you normally roll one die, okay? And then you check the results here. But if it says +1, in this case is a +1 advantage. You might not notice this, but there is a symbol, there's a character here, it's a nice Chinese character, that this symbol is different than this one. So this word means advantage, and this word means disadvantage. So, if you're shooting in flat terrain, you will roll 2 dice and choose the best result, a 10. You will go here, 10, 1 impact, suppressed. If it's a marsh, you will just roll 1 die, 8, 8, no modifiers, 1 impact, suppress. I don't have a counter for suppress now. Yes, suppressed. Impressive, by the way. Fine. If you're shooting at a city, that +1 disadvantage means that you're going to roll 2 dice and you're going to choose the worst result. So, in this case, 5. If you're shooting at a metropolis is like this hexagon here with a shaded outline, then you will roll 3 dice, and you will choose the worst of those 3 dice. Now, in this area here, it means a different thing. You see, the words are different. In this case, if you're shooting at a mountain level 1, what happens is that the result of the die, you just roll 1 die, but the result of the die will have a -1. This one the same, -1 and -1. This row in gray, the one at the top, is when you're doing an assault, okay? We'll go through that in the second combat phase. But in this one, bear in mind this is advantage. Only this one, all these are disadvantage dice. And this one doesn't mean advantage, disadvantage. Those are modifiers to your dice roll. Okay? A bit confusing, but I hope the 3 hours that it took me to find that out, it helps here. Thank you. Bye. So, campaign support forces. Those are forces that appear in these nested map hexes. Here is if you're playing with the module, the 01A, every airplane, naval unit, basically airplane or naval unit will transfer from the 01 map to this. If you're playing just with the ground module, the 01B, you still have some support units, which are, so the Chinese have as JH7A, a couple of those, at J16, and then the Taiwanese has FCK1, F16AB, a couple of airplanes. The Chinese has some drones that provide support for different activities, for combat support, ground combat support in terms of providing a +1 to roll die, and then they can also help in special operations, providing also guidance. Right, so how do you use this? So these ones are used during the preparation action phase of the first stage ground combat. So at the very beginning of the first stage of ground combat. Now, before that can happen, or before that happens, the player, it can be the attacker first and then the defender, can call for campaign firepower preparation. To use one of your airplanes to do that, you have to, first of all, check 2 things. If the target grid is within 1x from one of your units with an informatization value of 6 or more, then you can do it. Or if the unit that you're trying to shoot at is marked with target positioning with a special operation. So if it has, so this is the counter for special operations. So one of the special operations is targeting one unit. You see these binoculars here. So if the side of the special operations counter is on the target positioning, then you can use it for later on sending your, or later on like now, sending one of your airplanes that is flying in this area to bomb it. So if that happens, what you do is you literally just take your airplane that is in the area. So this corresponds to one of the areas. It doesn't matter if the airplane is here. That means that if the airplane is here, it can operate all around, not all around, sorry, in all the hexagons from the main map in this area. So yeah, but to be honest, it doesn't matter, because at the beginning of the turn you can relocate those counters wherever you want to. So I mean, I place them here, but then it depends where you're going to attack, so it's not a big deal. Right, so what you do is you take your counter and then you place it on the board, and then you perform a normal roll using this table with the firepower that is shown here, this 8. All the other information is for the air naval module, all this. Now you're only interested in this and these other two numbers. Why these other two numbers? Because one is the electronic defense and the other one is the physical resistance or defense value. Because well, actually for support you don't have to roll anything. They cannot shoot you at support. Support is essentially trying to suppress the enemy units. It's the same as when you're shooting in the first combat ground phase artillery. So the artillery is not gonna reduce the ground forces. It's not gonna eliminate them. It's just gonna suppress them. But what you can do is suppress them twice. So you can suppress them with your aircraft, and then if you suppress them again through maybe artillery support with ground units, if a unit is suppressed twice, then they lose one strength point. So you can do that if basically you're massively like bombing and bombing and bombing the unit that you're targeting. Now, there's another use for these airplanes, which happens in the second stage of ground combat, when the units are assaulting. So what you can do is to support the attack of one of those units that is assaulting. The procedure follows exactly the same, it happens in the same fashion. The only thing is that now you have to roll. Why you have to roll? Because when you're attacking with different units to the same X, what happens is they have to coordinate. So as they have to coordinate, this represents their coordination. So you have to roll for every unit that is participating in that joint attack. So you roll, and you have to roll lower than your informatization value. Airplanes don't have an informatization value. So what they do is to use the informatization value of the leading unit that is performing the attack. So if you're attacking with a unit with an informatization value of 6, then you're going to roll twice. 6 for the unit that is leading the attack and another 6 for the aircraft. In those rolls, if you roll higher than the informatization value, the unit that has rolled higher is going to halve their firepower. I think it's clear. And if both succeed, then you attack with the full power. Then what you're going to do is to add both numbers Let me show you an example. Let's see. This unit has a firepower of 24. So you could use that 24 plus maybe the firepower of this airplane, 8. So you could roll in the 32 column of this table, somewhere here. Right. And that's it. Well, not that's it. When you're using your aircraft to support the attack, if there are units with anti-aircraft capabilities, they're going to shoot at you, and they're going to shoot at you following the same sequence as when you're trying to support, as when you're using helicopters. So what does that mean is that the unit that has air support is going to roll a die. If it rolls less, if it rolls more than their informatization value, they're going to reduce 1 their anti-aircraft capability. So if I take the unit has a 3 anti-aircraft capability. You see there the white number. So if the informatization value is 6, if they roll 7 or higher, then that number will be a 2. And then what they do to attack your unit is to roll a die, and they have to roll lower than the anti-aircraft capabilities number. That's it for ground support. Oh well, there are also the missiles. So the Chinese have YJ-91s, and the Taiwanese have AGM-88E. So how this happens with the missiles are going to be, you can put it anywhere on the board. And for this mission, they only have 1 each. And once you have used it, then they will take 3 turns to reappear. So you basically can shoot one of these missiles every 3 turns. And so these missiles are those ones that have anti-radar capabilities, those 2. So when an enemy unit activates their radar, then essentially you can use them and suppress that unit. So every time an enemy uses their informatization value to check for recon, for instance, you can shoot them. When an enemy unit tries to fulfill a check, an electronic interference check, you can shoot them. Or when an enemy unit is trying to shoot at one of your aircraft, helicopter or airplane, you can shoot one of those. So you shoot them, and immediately the objective suffers 1 hit. Then they check if something happens to them, and if they fail the check, then they get suppressed. That's it. And they check with their electronic resistance, and if they don't have, with the physical. So they do those 2 checks. If they fail both, then they get suppressed, and that's it. Then you have used it. Once the aircraft or the missile that you have used finishes whatever they're doing, they come back to this box called return box. So this unit has supported your attack, then they will go to the return box, and then during the next phase of campaign firepower support, you need to wait for that unit to be ready. Normally it's 3 turns. There are 2 other actions that can be done, which is enter reserve, which is ground units with a standby marker can move once during the second ground combat phase, and external network infiltration, which I'm not going to touch because this is electronic warfare and I'm not going to touch that right now. But this all happens in the first combat ground phase. So a standby marker is this one. Let me show you. this one. So this one is, you're not preparing your unit to attack, you're not preparing your unit to defense, you're preparing your unit to move. And what does that mean? It means that, let's say that you want to move using the highway, right? And obviously, as in any game, using highways is a very effective way of moving because it costs you one movement, or a road costs two. Funnily, roads in this game, or curves, I don't know if you can see here, probably not, they have numbers. This is that means that this is a curvy road because it goes to a mountain. So this means that even if you're on a road, as you're kind of going in curves and so on, you spend more time, you spend more movement, you need more movement values to move through these roads. Well, essentially, to have the benefit effect of moving through roads, you have to prepare to move on the roads. If you think about it, you have to tell your unit, your brigade, to pack everything up and be ready to move, right? So as we are setting up the posture, right, it makes sense that if you're preparing to defend or you're preparing to attack, or even if you don't have this counter as prepare for a full attack, if you don't prepare, you're not preparing to move, to pack everything, you're not gonna be able to move as effective because, well, you're gonna leave things behind. So the game makes you think, it's like, do you want to move? Okay, then you need to decide that you're gonna move. Okay, and then you can use your road benefit effects. If not, you're just gonna move, well, using the other values for the other elements of the terrain that you are going through. Okay, good. So I'm gonna leave this short video here. I hope this helps at least to get an idea of what those counters are, the preparation for attack, the preparation for defense. It is fairly simple, but again, all this is in Chinese and it's super complicated. And also, definitely I will have structured the rules in a different way because things are a little bit all over the place. Okay, more interesting things about this counter. Imagine that you have this unit with an informatization value of 5. So this unit, when it reaches its turn, instead of deciding to go for a preparation for fire, preparation for defense, can decide to use this token. This token, what it allows it to do is in the second phase of ground combat to decide when does it want to act. So it can decide to act at a level of informatization of 9, for instance, and act first of any other unit, or at 6 or at 7, it doesn't matter. It can decide. Or it can decide to leave the counter here during the second ground combat phase, and during the first ground combat phase of the next turn, decide what it wants to do. If it wants to prepare for attacking, prepare for defense, all the good stuff, right? So this counter is actually pretty important for you to plan. If you know that maybe that unit is not going to do anything this turn, but you want it for later turns, maybe for an assault, and you want it to act first of anyone else, then you need to use this counter. Very good. So special operations. So special operations happen at the end of the first ground combat phase. So once you have finished all the preparation for attack, preparation for defense, all of that, then we begin the special operations. So there are the 3 counters related to special operations. There are these ones. They have this SOF in a rectangle. This one was in Chinese here at the bottom. And then if you flip it, there are some binoculars there, okay? So that's the first special operations. Now, there is this other counter that only the Z player has, that this counter is in the general record track. That is the number of teams that you have available to play. So you can deploy more special operations, let's say during each of your turns. And then if the mission that those special operations on the field, like this one, survive, they can go back and your special operations counter will increase in the general record track. And then we have these other, actually they're not special operations, those are special forces. You probably have seen them in the first ground combat phase, and I'll go through those. Those are, again, those not special operation forces, those are just special forces. I'm not gonna go through that because they are treated different and they are for different things. Now, once the special operations phase begin, there is a phase of counter infiltration. In this phase, enemy units that are adjacent or in the same hexagon of the special operation forces can try to detect it and eliminate it. Only large-scale ground forces, so meaning the big counters, the ones that have a strength of 3 or 4, can attempt this counter infiltration. So what you do, it is you're gonna roll a 10 die, and then if you roll less than the strength of that unit, okay, if you roll less than the strength of that unit, then the counter, the special operation counter, is eliminated. So let's see, for this one, I'll roll 6, nothing. This goes 3s, 7, nothing, and this one 3, I'll roll a 5. So they haven't been able to detect that unit, still undercover. Now, you do that for both, so first the attacker and second the defender. In this case, the Taiwanese, they also have special operation forces. They don't have many, but there are a few counters. Right. So let's continue with this one. So what can a special operation force group do? So they can tag a unit. So to do that, you just flip your counter, you put it in the binocular side, and you put it on top of the unit that is tracking. This action, what it does, it is critical for when you're using campaign forces. So normally you cannot bomb, let's say, with aircraft units that are not adjacent to others, but if you have a special operation groups that is targeting one particular unit, then you can use your aircraft to, let's say, bomb that unit. If the unit leaves the hexagon, the special operation groups goes back to undercover and stays in the hexagon. Okay, it doesn't move with the unit. It's just targeting here. Their mission is to target in the place, but as you can imagine, this is just a group of soldiers. It's not a brigade or anything. So when the brigade moves, it's going to move a lot faster. These guys cannot follow, essentially, wherever they are targeting. Good. So what else can they do? So they can perform a special assault. When a special assault happens, what you do is you target an enemy in your hexagon, right? Let's say this one. Now you're going to roll a 10 die and divide the result by 2. If the result is 1, 2, or 3, what you're going to do is you're going to suppress the unit, but the special operation forces are discovered and destroyed in the process. Now, if you roll a 4 or 5, not 4 or 5, remember, it's dividing the result of the die by 2, and I think what is rounded down, okay? So if you roll, I don't know, a 10, it's a 5, so yes, a 9, it's a 4.5, rounded down is a 4, so it still complies. That will mean that you're going to put a suppression marker on the unit, and then you can try to escape, not to escape, but try to pick your special forces unit, and they go back to the general record track, so you can deploy them again. And then if you roll a 6, and as you can imagine, in a 10 side die, you're gonna roll, if you halve it, you're gonna roll a 6, because the maximum will be 5. You can only roll a 6 if you have support of from drones. Okay, I'll explain how that works, the support from drones, but essentially what it does, if you have a drone nearby, it adds +1. So a drone like this one, it will add +1 to your result. So it has to be very likely. You have to roll a 10 plus having a drone, and then what happens is that you will put 2 suppression markers on the unit. From the rules, if you have to add a second suppression marker on the unit, that unit takes a hit. So that is very good, but as you can see, fairly complicated. Now, what you also can do is to do an information node assault. What that means is that you're trying to destroy the communications of the unit that you're trying to disrupt. So if it's successful, you will put this counter. What it does is a similar way of doing it as I just explained. So you roll a die on a result of 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, halving down the result of the 10 die and rounding it down, then nothing happens. On a result of 1 to 4, you don't do anything, but you can perform an attempt of evacuating that unit. If you roll a 5 or a 6, then you will have destroyed the communications of the unit that you're attacking, and also you can try to evacuate the area safely. You can try to attempt to infiltrate the network using like civilian networks, using, I don't know, you infiltrate inside one of the camps, and then you put a USB with a virus. That's the deal. If you manage to do so, and how it works is that once you're there, you're gonna roll a die. If the result is 3 or less, then you have managed to infiltrate the network, and you're gonna put this counter. Now this counter is very important because, as I've said, this is like installing a virus in the system, and again, this is pretty detailed, this game, right? It's just not shooting and assaulting and bombing and whatever. So the section where it talks about cyber warfare, which we're going to touch in a later video, explains how a virus can spread over the network of the unit that belongs to the unit. So you can see these two units are 4 ml. You can see there at the top right corner. So if you install a virus on this unit, it will spread around the unit, the associated units. So if you have broken down this unit into several others, it will affect them, and somehow you can create chaos everywhere, because actually this group for AML is here, there. You can see it, but there's another unit. So the virus can spread over and disrupt the communications of many units. I will show you what that means and what are the implications again when we touch cyber warfare. So, as I was saying, how to deploy the special operations team. So during each special operations phase of the turn, you can deploy special operations. First the offensive player and then the defensive player. So when you try to deploy one of these counters, you have to go here and move this counter down by 1, right? That's trying to deploy new special forces. There you go. Stop. Right. So first of all, you will put your counter, but if the target hexagon is within the air range of an enemy unit, each enemy unit in raid can declare the anti-air role. So let's say that we're trying to deploy this unit here. This unit cannot shoot because it's outside the hexagon. But if we will try, but this one can. This air base, you see, it has an air defense. You can see on the top left corner, it can shoot at 1 hexagon with a force of 2, and at 0 in its own place or its own hexagon with a force of 3. So if we will try to deploy that unit, this facility could shoot. How does it resolve? So you roll a 10 die, and if the result is less than the firepower, the air defense firepower, then you lose the special operation force. It has been, the helicopter has been shot down, and that's the end of the group. But then you can try it again if you want. It's just you have 6 special operation forces for this scenario. So yeah, that's what you do. Now, besides that, if there are enemy ground units in the grid, each unit rolls a die. If the result is less or equal to its strength, the infiltration fails. So let's say I'm trying to infiltrate this unit in this hexagon. This hexagon has this unit with a strength 4, the 4 rectangles, white rectangles that you see there. So I will roll the die. If the result is 4 or less, then this brigade has discovered, has seen the helicopter, they have sent a team, whatever, and they have captured the special operations team. If you try to do this at night, there are special rules for night time, so your turn counter is determined by this counter. But if you're playing with the night rules, well, there's going to be a sub phase, which is nighttime, and then during nighttime you add 1 to the roll on both the air defense and this ground forces detection. If the special operation forces survives both dice rolls, then you're able to place it, and then you're able to play it with that counter, as I've explained previously, doing those black op operations. Now, you can try at the end of your, it might be at the end of the special operation phase, or after you complete a certain operation that you want to take back, or to evacuate the special operations group. So because when you evacuate it, what happens is this number will increase in 1 if you evacuate it successfully. So how does the evacuation work? So you roll a die during the evacuation. If you roll less or equal to a 5, you evacuate safely, right? And then you increase 1 your special operations or special action points by 1. If you roll more than 5, then it fails and you lose that marker. But for each large-scale enemy ground unit with 3 or 4 strength points within 1 grid range, the evacuation roll is increased by 1. And if the hexagon where you're attempting the evacuation is within the range of enemy units with anti-air capabilities, then you're going to increase that roll die by 1 as well. So it makes it, well, a lot more difficult if you're trying to evacuate from a surrounded place. Otherwise, you can leave your special operations group there. Remember, at the beginning of the special operations phase, you're going to roll for each large unit that is around the special operation group. And if they roll less than their strength, then the special operations group is discovered and eliminated. So there is a risk of evacuating it, and there's a risk by leaving it there for the next turn. So you choose. Now, there are other special, they're not the special operations, they are special forces. And I'm gonna move the camera down here. So this counter here is a special forces group, and you see it has that SF there, special forces, and also here SFG, special forces group. This acts as a unit, but also it has some special capabilities. You see it has the strength of the unit is 2, but then also has a +1. This means this unit can support the attack of other units. If this unit supports the attack, what it can do is to share its informatization value. Meaning that, for instance, if you attack in combination with this unit, or you give this unit fire support, instead of attacking when the informatization level is 6, it can attack right at the beginning of the turn, which is great, which is a lot. So, and also, when you're rolling for an assault, you know, when you do the difference between the informatization value of the unit that is attacking and the informatization value of the unit that is defending, you can also use the informatization value of the special forces group when you are combining it with another force. So very good. A bit confusing in the rules, because, well, one is a special operations forces and this one is a special forces group. But now you can tell the difference, and you see that they are useful, both of them. Very good. So during the special operations step, I talked about drones. Drones support to be able to increase the dice roll needed to perform certain actions. So those drones are these ones that are here in the nested map area, right? These drones, when you deploy them, at least for this scenario, you can deploy them anywhere on the map, and they're going to be supporting every operation in this, where they are. So this region belongs to TN1, which is also marked on the map with some yellow lines. And every time it will provide a +1 to the dice roll from attacking, fire support, the special operations, everything. These drones, when they are in this map, they are like this, with the face of the air and naval operations, like the module, right? Because when they are like this, they can be attacked. If you're playing with everything with a 01A module, they can be attacked by other aircraft or missiles, right? When they are in this group, in this module, in the 01B, then the counter is flipped, and then they will be acting with these values. So informatization value, fire support, electronic defense, physical defense, and this H is they can move anywhere. They won't ever move to the big map here. They will always stay here in the nested map hexes. And they have fuel, you'll see here, down here in this corner, 4. So that's the fuel. They can be flying for 4 turns, so 16 hours. And then after that, they have to return to base. So that's why this counter is here, to track the number of turns that this thing has been flying. From the ground units cannot shoot down these drones. Only aircraft that move in this nested map hexes can try to shoot down the flying units in this map. Okay? Okay, logistics and supply. Logistics and supply is the first thing that happens at the end of the Special Forces phase and at the beginning of the second ground combat phase. So first of all, what we do in this phase is so we can provide supply with these counters, with units that are like this, that has SU and then 2 numbers. This number represents the range where this unit can provide supply to, and 4 is the amount of supply that can provide. So units that have the consumed counter, this one, so that means units that have attacked or assaulted and counter-attacked, if they have participated in a joint attack, they're going to be spent. They're going to have, or consumed, they're going to have this counter, meaning that all their values become 0. They are exhausted. So let's imagine this unit here in the previous turn has attacked or counter-attack, doesn't matter. All these values here become 0. Units do not become exhausted if they are using preparation fire during the first ground combat phase. So they are using this value here, which is the artillery support. They won't become exhausted. It's just if they participated in an assault, unless the unit has 2 golden values like this one, because this is a artillery unit. This cannot participate in an assault. You see, it has 2 golden numbers, and both of them are for support firepower. So if they provide support firepower during the first ground combat phase, this unit will be also exhausted. Okay. Now, so units that have the exhausted counter cannot be resupplied. And you will say, oh, then if this unit is exhausted, then what happens? So at the end of the supply and logistic phase, a unit with an exhausted counter will flip its counter, showing this side. Then all the values are halved unless they are supplied in the next logistic and supply phase. This represents that the unit has been recovered from combat, but they don't have supply to maintain a continuous assault to a certain position, and that's why all your values are halved. Now, if the unit at the beginning of the supply and logistics phase has this counter side on, with this side on, then another unit with supply values can provide supply. How do you provide supply? So to supply to another unit, you have to check what is the strength of that unit. So in this case, it has 1 rectangle, so it's a unit of 1 strength. So to provide supply, this unit has 4 supplies at 1x, so you can provide 1 of the supplies to this unit, and this unit will become refreshed, ready for combat. Now, if units are infantry units, they consume, for each 2 of their strength, they will consume 1 supply. So yeah, they consume less. So this infantry unit here, it will just consume half of the supply points that the units can provide. And again, you can provide supply to many units till you deplete your supply points. So you have to decide if you have, if like this unit is in the middle of all this, so you have to decide which units do you want to supply with these 4, in this case with these 4 supply points that you have. So that's one thing. Now there are supply units that can provide supply farther than 1x. Imagine that this one had 2. Then to provide supply, there cannot be enemy units in the way, right? So imagine that you have an enemy unit, so that you have an enemy unit and you try to supply to this unit, and this had a range of 2. This unit wouldn't be able to be supplied because it will have 1, 2, 3 hexes to go around this unit. Okay, so that is it for supply. Supply is very important in this game because if not, you're going to continuously attack or defend with half of your strength values, because again you can try to attack or defend or counterattack with in this state, but if you attack or counterattack immediately, you will become like this, and then you need to wait 2 turns to be fully supplied, because the following turn this will flip over, and then the next one is when you can resupply. So that is critical, how to plan your supplies and which units you can attack and which units you're deciding that they're going to rest. This is where you can actually attack other units that are adjacent to your units. So how does that work? That works by what in the rules again they changed the name and it's called assault. So assault means exactly that, you're trying to attack an adjacent unit. So as in the first combat phase, ground combat phase, the units are activated by their informatization number. So starting from 9 to 1, I haven't seen any unit with 1 value of informatization, but might be in the future, I don't know. Anyway, and the attacker first. So if we focus a little bit on this area of the map here, we should see, okay, is there any unit with informatization value of 9 of the attacker? No. Is there any unit of the defender with an informatization value of 9? No. 8 from the attacker? No. From the defender? Yes. So there is this unit, this is a special forces group, that's an informatization value of 8, I don't know if you can see, but it's there. So this unit can now try to assault an adjacent unit. In this case, well, maybe this combat group that landed and it got suppressed, a coastal defense there, and decided with a good judgment to prepare for defense because they're going to be attacked. Now, this special forces group is not precisely very strong. It has a firepower of 2, but again, it has a strength of 1. So according to the rules, this is just not a few guys here. This represents as units with a strength of 1. It means that there are like 500 to 1,000 soldiers, associated helicopters, and some other vehicles, right? So it might appear in the picture there are just a few men or people, soldiers portrayed, right? But it's actually a lot. It's a big force going on here. Well, the thing is that in during assault, we're going to do that assault. So in assault, those counters that we have put here besides our units or on top are starting to play a role. So when this unit attacks this unit, as we have prepared for attack, it has a multiplier of 1.5 on its current firepower, rounded up. So this will have a firepower of 2 multiplied by 1.5. So essentially, right, so you will have a real firepower of 3. Now, when you assault, you have to be careful because the units that you're shooting at can counterattack you. And the counterattack, it might be deadly because it happens at the same time as when you're attacking, but it actually has some benefits to it. So you'll see some benefits and not so benefits. You'll see what I mean in a second. So let's do the attack, right? So we'll go to this table. We have to find, I don't know if you can see here, it's a little bit blurred, the column with the correct firepower. So we are in this range, 3 to 4. And now we have to make a dice roll. We are shooting at units that are in a city area. So also that roll is modified by this. So it has here a +2. Remember, we use this row for support firepower actions. We use this row in gray for assault. And this +2 means, as for the support action, that we, instead of rolling 1 die, we're going to roll 2 dice, and we're going to keep the lower result, the lowest result. That happens in those those 3 terrains, and in clear terrain there is no modifier. So metropolis or no metropolis. Metropolis is different. City, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to roll. Fantastic roll. So there is a 8 and a 1. So we're going to keep the 1. So that's pretty bad. So that means that nothing happens, but wait a second. Because we also have to take into account the difference between informatization values. So as this unit, it has recon, it has a super high technology, they are special forces, right? So they have a lot of more elements to identify the enemy, see where it is, etc. So what you do is to do the difference between their informatization values, and you add it as a plus to that table. So 8 minus 3 is 3. So actually your result, instead of being a 1, it will be 1, 2, 3, a 4. Still a miss, but that's how it works. Now imagine that you will have gotten a result of one of those numbers. Besides that, there are also rules, optional rules for combining attacks. So if you have units adjacent to this unit, they could attack all together to a unit, and their firepowers add in a certain way, which again I'm not going to touch in this video, but keep that in mind. Also this unit, the special forces, has a +1, so it means that also can support the attack in different ways. Again, that's a little bit more complicated, and again I just want to touch the core rules, not optional rules that you can apply. Right, so imagine that we got a hit. So as this unit is in its defensive state, when it attacks, its firepower is halved. So it will be 2.5 rounded up, it will be 3. But also, it divides by half the number of hits that it receives. So in this case, I mean, if it gets 1 divided by 2 rounded up, it will still be 1. But if it will have received 2 impacts, then as it's in a defensive state, it will divide by 2 the number of hits, so it will just receive 1. If you make two impacts to this hexagon, you're shooting at the hexagon, okay? So here actually there are 2 units. And you get 2 impacts, you will assign an even amount of impacts among the units that are in that hexagon. Okay, so you cannot decide to do, okay, I assign 2 impacts to just 1 unit. It will be 1 and 1. Okay, but in this case it will be halved, so well, it's just 1 unit. Right, so imagine that you hit one of the units. Now that unit has like a defense factor roll. So in this case, I don't know if you can see here, is a 3. That 3 is its defense. So it will roll a die. If it's more than its defense value, then it fails the roll and it will get a hit. And in this case, it only has 1 strength, so it will be destroyed. If it rolls a 3 or less, then the unit saves from that impact. So now, the defending unit can decide that it wants to counterattack. And that's interesting. First of all, has to roll a die. If it rolls less than its informatization value, the counterattack happens with its full firepower. In this case 5, but divided by 2 because it's in defensive position. If it rolls more than its informatization value, then their firepower is halved. So in this case it will be halved because of being in the defensive position, and halved again by missing the counterattack roll. So pretty bad. Now, when you counterattack, let's say that this unit is counterattacking this unit, you'll be like, oh well. Then you have to apply the modifiers when it rolls of a metropolis. But for some reason, counterattacks do not take into account the terrain of the unit that you're counterattacking. So this won't matter. But also what doesn't matter is the difference between the informatization values. So it's just a pure dice roll, whatever it is. For the good and for the bad, because imagine that this unit had an informatization value of 8 and this one of 5. Then it doesn't matter if it benefits you or is a disadvantage to you. So in this case, let's say, let's see if he passes the check. 8 fails, so it will be 2.5 and divided by 2.5, so 1.25. In this case, I don't know if you will round it up because it will be 1. I would say that it's 1. So it will have a firepower of 1. So you will go to this column of 1, roll a 1. So obviously it's not going to do anything. And that will be the end of the counterattack. Now, this is very important. Anytime a unit assaults or fires at another unit, will get this counter. This counter is a spent unit, meaning that all their values, all their firepower, defense, movement becomes 0. This unit can't do anything. This counter about preparing the attack will be removed. For these units, actually I have rolled for just one of the units. The other unit will try also to counterattack. So let's see if he passes the check. 6 fails, and then actually it's a shot 8. 8, if we go to the column of 1, 8 is an impact. So let's see what happens. This has a defense of 1, so it will save itself at 1. Oh, and rolls a 1, so pretty lucky. These special forces, so nothing will happen to them. Right, so as this unit has counterattacked, then they also become spent. Both, even if they have failed. Meaning that they won't be able to attack unless they are resupplied at some point. So again, this is when you attack, it means that you have gone full force on that. So it's a proper attack. You have gone with everything. It's not that small firefights here and there. So then you need resupply. So these units are basically gone, especially this one, because he has just landed. So at the moment I don't have any other units with the capacity of resupply this unit, so this is pretty gone. It cannot do anything at the moment. Not attacking, not defending, not nothing. You will do this for all the units that you wish to use for attacking. So for instance, I have this one, actually after the number 8 informatization value, I have these other special ground forces, but they are trying to defend because this unit here is preparing to attack. So seeing what was going to happen, they have opted for defending. But who knows, maybe this unit will attack this other unit. We'll see in a second. Or I won't show you, but we'll see afterwards. So you will resolve all the combats, and then remember, every unit that has shot, counterattack, or assault, it will become spent till he's able to resupply or not. Good. So I'm gonna leave it here. This is the second. Actually, this is not the end of the second ground combat phase. There is. Okay, this is an optional rule during the assault, which I think shouldn't be optional because it sort of makes sense. So this is to do a sort of a combined attack through using multiple units and many multiple hexagons adjacent to the unit that you're shooting at. This only happens during the assault. So let's imagine during the assault, this unit here is assaulting this other unit here. This unit here can join their assault, and if they do, they will be able to increase their total firepower by their firepower amount. So this could be 8 plus 2. Now, what is important is before doing that, you have to roll a die for each unit that is participating in the attack. And you have to roll less or equal than the informatization value. If you roll higher, what happens is that your firepower is going to be reduced by half. So let's roll. 4. Okay, so this will have full amount 8, and this one 7. So it will be at the end 8 plus 2, and then when you roll here on this table, well, you will roll with a firepower of 10. What happens as well, if you have units that have artillery support, which is not this, thank you, computer, like, which one has, I don't have any, this one, for instance, this has artillery support, right? So now let's imagine that what we're doing is these two Chinese units are shooting at this hexagon. So what they can do, even if this unit is here, what they need to be is one hexagon away of the target, not necessarily be adjacent by one hexagon. So first of all, they need to be at range of the hexagon that they're shooting. So they are in range because they have 2. And now, while shooting, they can add this value. So it will be 19 plus 2 plus 10 plus 1 if they want to do so. But again, before that, you're gonna roll the die, and if it's less than your informatization value, then your firepower, the support firepower, is gonna be halved. So there are two things to do here. You can decide, or you want to combine both rules. You can do like everything. You can combine this and this, and then you can also combine the artillery support from your own unit. If you want to add, again, those two are optional rules. You can add your firepower of your same unit to the firepower of the unit without having to roll. So let's say if this unit on its own will be attacking this unit,
Using this optional rule will allow you to use also, or to add the artillery firepower, this one, to their normal firepower. Which again, I think, and it doesn't need to roll if it's just one unit doing so. Okay, and I think it's a rule that makes sense. You will be attacking with everything, with the artillery, and maybe a combined attack with artillery first, and then assaulting. So I think I use both rules. The risk of combined forces is, again, that you might end up having half of the total firepower that you thought you were going to have. But, well, there's no risk, no glory. Thank you. Next. Oh, forgot. So imagine that you have this unit actually 2 hexagons from the unit that you're trying to shoot. You could try to use the same rule. So shoot with this one, use what they call breakthrough firepower, add their own artillery support, and with this one, as you need to check the same rules as for shooting artillery, right? So it is or adjacent to another unit, or 1 hexagon away of a unit that has an informatization value of X, or 2 hexagons away of a unit that has an informatization value of X. If you have watched the whole video, you'll see what I'm talking about. So if that's checked, for instance, there is this unit that is adjacent to this other unit, then and it complies with those rules of identification, then you will be able to add this firepower. Again, you have to roll, and if you roll that less or equal to 5, then you will be able to add +2 to this 10 + 1. So I think it's, again, as I mentioned just now, very useful and very cool that they have rules for this sort of combined attacks. So attack helicopters, how do they work? This is not an attack helicopter because it's a CH. This is transport and doesn't have any firepower here. So not for today. This is an attack helicopter which has some firepower here, and in this case a UH. It also doesn't have that rectangle here at the bottom like this one that tells you that can transport units. Fine, so how do they work? So essentially they work the same as ground units. The only difference is, well, they move from off the map to into the map, paying the movement cost, which I've explained the movement phase. So they pay that movement depending on which box they are, and then the movement to enter the board through any of those X's. Now you have to be careful with attack helicopters because they can only attack in the hexagon that they are in. So you want this attack helicopter to attack here, you need to put it here, which sometimes is an issue because they are subjected to anti-aircraft fire through the route. So if, I don't know, there will be units somewhere here in every hexagon that they enter, and if there is a unit with anti-aircraft capabilities, that unit will shoot it. When they reach the hexagon, the destination, they will be subjected to anti-aircraft fire from the units of the hexagon. And if the case, like this air base has 2 values for aircraft defense, it will shoot twice. Now, if during its trip it receives 1 impact, the unit will return to base. It's not destroyed, it will just return to base in this flipped in this condition. If it receives 2 impact from the same unit, the unit will be destroyed if it doesn't pass the safe roll. So how the anti-aircraft fire happens is, first of all, the unit that is planning to fire has to roll the dice against their informatizational value. If they pass that check, then nothing happens. But if they fail, they get a -1 for the anti-aircraft shot. If the unit is suppressed, so they have this counter, as you can see the top left corner has a 1.5. The anti-aircraft attack is half. So like this one, this unit, you see, has a 3 anti-aircraft, so it will be half if it's suppressed. And if it doesn't pass the informatizational value check, so roll a 9, doesn't pass because it should have roll a 6 or less, then it will get a -1 on the roll. So in the anti-aircraft roll, you're gonna need to try to roll less than your anti-aircraft value. So in this case, it will be 3 - 1, 2, or roll a 2. So that makes 1 impact on this unit. Now, this unit has a physical resistance of 2. So 0 receives 1 impact, it will roll 2 or less, saves. 1 saves. Then it can continue flying to its destination. Now, what happens when it arrives to its destination? The helicopter moves during the first fire phase. Okay? It could try to do a continuous movement, the ones that ground units can do, which is to move and shoot. But the problem is you probably are not going to have enough movement points to do so, because remember, if you're able to do that, you will halve your movement points. So the boxes that have these helicopters already have movements of 13, 10, or 9 that are taken from your movement. So if you divide 16 by 2, is an 8, so you won't be able to even get out of that box. So what you have to do is a 2-step process. In your first combat phase, you take your helicopter and fly it to its destination, and then in the second phase of ground combat is when you can shoot. You can shoot on its own, so there are no enemy, there are no Chinese units, for instance, in this hexagon. Then you can just shoot, and you will use, this is a transport helicopter. You can use just its firepower of the helicopter, and that's it. You can move more helicopters, and every time a helicopter occupies a space that could be subjected to anti-aircraft, you will perform that roll and see what happens to that helicopter. Again, this is not a single helicopter. There are probably like 100 helicopters, not 100, but maybe 25 or something. I don't know exactly, but there is not just one helicopter that you send in. Right. You can use the helicopter for a combined or a joint attack. So how that happens is when you're shooting, let's say that you have this unit here, this unit is shooting at this hexagon, this helicopter can join the attack and try to add its firepower, but the helicopter has to be in the hexagon that you're firing into. Okay, and then if it's, again, you have to roll. If you, no, actually you don't have to roll in this one. It will just join the attack. Now, the helicopter has an informatization value of 7 and this unit has 6. There is no problem. The helicopter essentially waits till the attack, and then when the attack happens, it adds its firepower. Once it has performed the attack, it will return to base immediately. And yeah, helicopters can provide dynamic suppression. So if you leave your unit here and it hasn't shot, then in the phase where you check the dynamic suppression, which you're gonna see, I don't know if before or after this cut of the video, it can provide dynamic suppression. So just based on the pure firepower, if it triples the firepower of a unit on its hexagon, then that unit will be suppressed. If a ground unit is counterattacked, the helicopter also participates in that combat, but it won't get hit by the counterattack. So it will add its firepower, but it's supposed that the helicopter shoots whatever it needs and leaves, and won't stay for the whole counter attack. So remember, this is 4 hours. The helicopter is a lot faster than any ground units on the ground. Oh, and there cannot be a helicopter against another helicopter combat. There is always helicopter against ground units. And if there are only helicopters in the attack, enemy units cannot counter-attack. So if this wasn't like this, and it was just the helicopter doing a ground attack, the ground units cannot counter-attack it. So, dynamic suppression. What's dynamic suppression? Dynamic suppression happens at the end of the second ground combat phase. The dynamic suppression simulates that, again, even though your units are not fully attacking, there's still some skirmishes happening during those 4 hours. So at the beginning of dynamic suppression phase, what you do is you remove all the suppression counters that are on board. So let's say this unit was suppressed at this point. You remove that suppression marker. That's it. And now you check which units can dynamically suppress other units. How do you check that? So you have to check if the firepower the breakthrough firepower is triple the firepower breakthrough or breakthrough firepower of the units of the X that you're trying to apply the dynamic suppression. Each unit can just apply dynamic suppression to another hexagon. So if this unit could apply dynamic suppression to these units, then he couldn't do, or this unit couldn't do, to any other unit around it. So obviously the unit needs to be adjacent to the unit that's trying to dynamically suppress, and then it needs to check. So in this case, you will add. So this unit has 16 plus 2, 18. Is it triple? 20 is triple than this number. So one thing that I haven't mentioned is this dynamic suppression, the offensive player does it first and then the defensive player. So this unit could try to actually dynamically suppress this unit because, well, actually it cannot, because 16 plus 2 is 18 is not more than 3 times 8. Right, so they will try. No, it doesn't work. This one, for instance, so 10 is 3 times 6 or more than 3 times 6. No, so it cannot dynamically suppress. Once this is done with all the units on the board, then the defensive player will try to do the same and see if they can. If they can, then you will put a suppression marker to whoever unit has been suppressed this way. One thing to note, it is that what you check is the original value printed on the counter. So if they have these consumed markers on top, I put them on the side because if I put them on top, I cannot see the informatization number of the units. It makes it a lot difficult to play. So I recommend you to put the counters on the side. My point is that it doesn't matter the counter that they have, and if they will have a preparation for attack or things like that, that doesn't affect this the value for the dynamic suppression. It's just the originally printed number on the counter. Core units or HQs. Core units or HQs are these counters. The ones that have a golden symbol, not golden symbol, golden letters on the top right corner. Normal units have that number in black. HQs have them in golden. And they don't have any firepower value. They have their informatization value, their defense value, and their movement. And behind, they have same values but with an R. So this unit, as you can see, has a strength of 2, 1 white, 1 black. This means this unit cannot be completely destroyed. So you can make it you can remove 1 hit point, okay? I will flip over, but then the second one, the black one, Means that if this unit is destroyed by any means, it will come back when? In 3 turns. So you will put this counter on the turn track 3 turns from the turn that you're playing, and then when you move the marker, the turn marker, to where this unit is, then you can bring it back to wherever it was initially during the setup of the game. If you don't have an HQ associated, so there are several things that you cannot do. You cannot perform the continuous action. That continuous action that appears in the first ground combat phase, which is to move and then prepare for something, you cannot do it. You cannot perform the enter reserve action, so that counter that allows you to wait or to move using highway movement, you cannot. You cannot do. You cannot use the campaign support units, so you cannot call for support if you don't have a HQ in your on the ground, which makes sense. So unless you beach land one of these, your drones or anything that you have in the nested map cannot help you and cannot help the units of this group. So if you have this 73 HQ on board, the drones will be able to help your 73 group units, but not the 72 or the 71. Okay, we continue with fun stuff. Electromagnetic space warfare. This is an optional rule, but as I think I've already said this when talking about the module, the 01A, is that use all the optional rules if possible. They add so much flavor and so much to the game. They're optional, and yes, they complicate a little bit the game, but you're not playing this game if you think it's going to be easy. So play with everything. Now, electromagnetic space warfare, it is very cool. So there are units marked with IEW. So those units have the electronic interference warfare, let's say, capabilities. So there are a few. Okay, they have both these units, and what they do is to put these counters on units. If you manage to succeed interfering electronically other units, what happens is you're going to put this counter, and this counter what does is reduces the informatization value of the targeted unit to 1. And I don't know if you have seen this at the beginning of the video or later on, but that's very important because it means that the other unit is exposed to attacks, especially during assaults. It's like your unit is blind, right? Imagine that you're attacking with a unit with an 8. These ones cannot attack directly, but you have, don't know, special forces group which has an 8, like that one, informatization value, and you have, a unit that is interfere electronically, so that unit will have a 1. So when you roll, the affected unit will, or the unit that is shooting will have a +7 to the roll because you do the difference between those two numbers. So it's amazing. Now, how this works is, imagine that I have my unit there. Let's move the camera a little bit, and I want to interfere, I don't know, the special forces group that is here. So this unit needs to be at 2 hexagons from the targeted unit at least. And then what is simple, you roll against your informatization value. If you roll less or equal than your informatization value, then you're going to put one of those counters and place it on top of the interfere unit. Now, every unit has a different amount of counters. So these east units have 3. And that's it. Meaning that if you have the situation, this unit could attempt another 2
I could try another 2 attempts for other units in this hexagon. Or if you have other units, like, I don't know, this one could try. But this will be a little bit stupid, right? Because why would I have 2 units trying to interfere electronically any other? But it could do. My point is that if another unit was here, this could do another attempt on, I don't know, this other unit, and this one could try, if there was another unit here, interfere there electronically another unit here, or this one could try 3. You know, you can understand how it does work. There are other units like this one, the 73GA, which only has 1 counter, so can only try to interfere communications once, and also the informatization value is lower. So, well, there are more for the Chinese and for the Taiwanese. Now, how do you escape from that? Well, if by any reason, or for any reason, your unit or the enemy unit moves so the distance is more than 2 hexagons, then the counter is immediately removed. There is not enough range to interfere the communications. And at the beginning of the electronic removal recuperation or the network recuperation phase, which happens at the end of the turn, then every unit that has one of these counters can try to recover their electronic systems. And what they do is they roll against the original informatization value, and then if they roll less or equal, then the electronic interference is removed. So yeah, imagine a special forces group. It's going to be a lot easier to recover from one of those interferences. Still, it's going to need to go through the whole turn with an informatization value of 1. But after that turn, after those 4 hours, they managed to do whatever they had to, probably, and recover. If this would have targeted this infantry brigade, probably these are not going to recover soon because the informatization value is 4, so it's a lot less likely that they are able to recover the capabilities. It will be a lot easier for this unit to move away from the unit that is causing the interference, and then that way solving their communications issue. Very good. In the box, you're also going to find these counters, which have no unit associated. If I bring back these ones have a unit associated to this, because these ones are used for the special forces are the ones using it. Again, I don't know if you're going to see how special forces work before or after this cut. But when I talk about special forces, remember that special forces can also try to perform this sort of attacks, to attack the electronic network, to do electronic interference. That's what it means. It means that if they succeed in their mission, they will put one of these counters in the targeted unit. Cyberspace combat. Cyberspace combat, we enter the realms of absolutely insane level of detail of this game. Now, first of all, what units can perform cyberspace combat? Only units that have this IEW. So, whereas EW and IEW can perform electronic attacks, only the units that are IEW can perform cyberspace combat attacks, or as they call network intrusion. So I'm gonna remove this one from here, and by the way, only Chinese units can perform this type of attacks. Okay, they are the only ones having the technology to do so. Well, the technology, yeah, that's the technology to do so. So the counter that is associated to these cyber attacks is this one, which also, again, you might have heard this before or after I said this, but special forces can perform this type of attacks too, and how they can do it is explained in the special forces sequence, which happens after the first combat phase. Right, so this cyberspace combat happens during the first, well, actually it happens in both phases, just to make things easier, or not to make things easier. It happens during the first combat phase, and we can do something during the first combat phase, and then during the second combat phase something else happens. So first of all, the target that we can target with these units are units with informatization values of 6 or higher. Those are considered in the game as nodes. Okay, so let's bring maybe this unit here. Could it be 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Yeah, it can fit the maximum capacity of the hexagon. So this is a node, but also this special forces group can act as a node, but as you can see, it doesn't really matter because we're not going to target with cyber attacks this special forces group because it won't do absolutely anything to anyone. But this is a juicy unit to target. So first of all, what we're doing is hacking systems. We are trying to enter their network somehow. This is an external attack, as they call it, external network penetration. So we are trying to, somehow infiltrate a team that accesses the a computer or something and install a virus. For that, we need a unit that has these capabilities, IEW, adjacent to the unit that we're trying to attack, to the node that we're trying to attack. Let's say that we're trying to attack this one. So if we are adjacent, what we're going to do is a roll against the informatization value. If the roll is higher than the informatization value of the unit that we're attacking, then we have installed a virus in that unit, and that unit doesn't know yet. That's why now this unit can operate normally. It will move to operate, nothing happens, but this counter is bounded to the unit. It will carry it. It's carrying the virus. Now, when this unit in the second, that's what happens in the first combat phase. Now we're going to move to the it moves to the second combat phase. Now this virus can spread over. How? So when this unit is adjacent or at maximum 3x's of another unit of their own group, and how do you know the group is by this number here? This is their group number 5, corresponding to PT. So I know there is another unit that I have here. Yeah, this one, this small unit that is somewhere here. So this unit that is here, this unit is part or belongs to the same group. So they share the same network. So you can try to spread the virus. How does this work? So for every unit that is at 3 hexagons of the a unit that has a virus, you're going to roll a die. And then if the result is higher than the informatization value of the target unit, then what you're going to do is to put another of these counters, which means here. Now this unit is also infected, and as you can imagine, in later turns you can keep doing so, and this unit moves, then if at some point it's a 3 hexagons of another unit of the group, then you can try to roll and keep spreading viruses. Now, at any point, whenever you decide, after you have attempted an internal or external penetration roll, you can decide to activate the virus, which is to implement the cyber attack. Then, when you do that, you're going to flip all the counters of all the units that have been infected, and they become, as they call, network paralyzed. The network paralysis affects them, reducing by half their movement, their capacity to do firepower support, so using artillery, and halving as well their anti-aircraft capabilities. So all of that happens. Now, only when the units are showing this network paralysis counter, they can try to do something about it. So first of all, they activate automatically firewall, meaning they cannot be targeted again for external or internal network infiltration. So yeah, they have realized, okay, there's a virus, we have lost communication, something's happening, firewall, beep, and then they cannot be targeted again. And then they can use some antivirus to try to remove that virus. So during the electronic network recovery phase, which happens at the end of the term, each unit with a network paralysis can try to remove it. So what they have to do is they have to roll against the strength value of the unit, in this case 2, and if the dice roll is less, if all the so you're going to check the strength of the unit. In this case, this unit is 2, so you're going to roll 2 dice for that unit. If both dice are less than the informatization value of the unit, of the original informatization value of the unit, then the network paralysis is removed. So as you can imagine, if you target a huge unit like this one that has 3, you need to roll all 3 less than 6, and if not, they're still dealing with the virus that you have installed. So that's the cyberspace combat. And again, you probably have seen this counter before or been talked about this before, because special forces can also try to do this. Install viruses in the systems of soldier units. Go to the special forces section and you'll see how this is used in that case.